What up, Winbush here, and today I want to show you how we could do cinematic camera moves, this time inside of UEFN, that Unreal Engine for Fortnite, using an Xbox controller. Now this will work with the Xbox Series controller, Xbox One, or the Xbox 360 controller. If you have a Pro controller like from the Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation 5, I don't believe this will work, but if you do have an Xbox controller laying around, this will totally work for what we're going to do. So as you can see, I have UEFN open right now, and the first step I'm going to do is going to take my Xbox controller and I'm going to plug it in. I like using wired because it gives us more precise movements. So right here, let me actually plug this in to my computer like so. And once it's connected, you can see down the lower right hand corner, it's going to say that input device is connected. But if I select inside my scene here and start using my controller, you can see that nothing is going on. So what we need to do is come up here to edit, and then I'm going to come down here to editor preferences. And then I'm going to come over here inside of my preference window, hit all settings, and inside my search, I'm just going to type in joy like so. And then right here under controls, you can see level editor joystick controls. Now, if I click this on and then let me exit this out, now going back to my controller, if I move it around, you can see we actually have the Xbox controller working inside of our viewport like so. So now the next step from here is let's actually connect this to a camera so that we can record it. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over here on my outliner, just move these up so we can see it a little bit better. So what I'm going to do right here, where we have this cube that says quickly add the project, I'm going to left click on this, and then I'm going to come down here to cinematic, and I'm just going to add a cine camera actor. Now I'm going to left click on this, and you can see that we have our camera inside of our viewport now. So if I want to control my camera with my Xbox controller, I'm going to come up here to perspective, then come down here to where it says placed cameras, and I'm going to select that camera. So now we're looking from inside that camera, and if I use my Xbox controller, I'm going to click inside my viewport, and then I'm going to move back, and there we go. So now we're controlling the scene with our Xbox controller looking through our camera. So now we can actually go through and record this using our Xbox controllers. So what I'm going to do now is going to come up here to window, and I'm going to look for cinematics, which is the first one right here. And you should see take recorder, which is right here. So I'm going to left click on this. And now this is going to bring up this new window on the right hand side called take recorder. And it's also going to open up our sequencer. Now the take recorder can be used for a couple of things, like we're going to use it for our camera, but you can also use it for motion capture and even audio in here as well. So what we're going to do is going to come over here to our outliner, and we're going to look for a camera, in which I have it down here. So there we go, cinema camera actor. I'm just going to left click and drag it into this box right here. And you want to make sure we have it selected here and turned on. So now up here in the top right hand corner, you see this big red button. This is going to be our record button. So once we click on this, it's going to actually count down 3, 2, 1, and then it's going to start recording. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to click inside my viewport. And once it's done counting down, now you can see inside the sequencer, we're actually starting to record. So once I start moving my camera with my Xbox controller, just moving it around in here, something like that, then I'm going to come up here, hit stop. And you might notice that down here, we don't see anything inside of our sequencer. And that's because if we come down here into our content drawer, we should have a folder now called cinematics, which is right here. You're going to double click on this, and then double click on takes. And then you should see a folder with today's date on it. So I'm going to double click on this. And now you can see where we have all of our recordings at, which is going to be our sequencer right here. So if I double click on this one, and then I close out my content drawer, now you can see it looks like it's blank up here. And that's because we're not looking through our camera. So if I come down here inside of my sequencer, click on my camera, and then start to hit play, I'm just going to drag it over here a little bit more. So here we go. I'm going to start it right here. I'm going to click on play. And now you can see that it has our recordings from my Xbox controller in here like this. Now you might be thinking this looks really sporadic, in which it really does. And so a tip that I often use is if I come up here to where we have camera speed, I'm going to left click on this. I'm actually going to turn the camera speed down to probably something about 0.1. Now when I go to record it, we're going to get a little bit more smoother playback. So let me come in. I'm going to actually make a second camera so that I could do a completely another shot. So I'm going to come back down here, cinematics, add a second camera in here. Then I'm going to take that camera, drag it into my take recorder. I'm going to turn this one off, and I'm going to make sure I have this one selected. And then right here under perspective, I'm going to left click on this, come down here under camera actor 2. So now I'm looking inside this camera, and if I start moving my Xbox controller again, let me click on my viewport. There we go. So now when I'm moving everything around, it's a lot slower and that's giving us much more cinematic movement in there. Now, if you didn't know before from seeing my previous tutorial, like the right thumbstick, that's just going to move your head around like so. And then it's just like moving a first person shooter. So the left thumbstick is actually going to move your camera around. If you hold down the left trigger up top, that's going to move down. The right one is going to move up. So that's all the controls that you're going to have in here. But let's record a second take in here, and then we can actually combine these together inside the editor. So once again, I'm going to click on record, going to click inside my viewport. And once this is done taking, counting down, click on in here. And now I'm just going to move around a little bit slower inside my viewport here. Something like that. Okay, so let's say we're happy with our camera movement. I'm going to hit stop. And now if I come back down here into my content drawer, you should see a second sequencer. So if I double click on this one now, scroll this up here a little bit. Now you can see this is the second control that we just did, or not control, but the second take we did with our Xbox controller. So let's say we want to combine several shots together, like right there, we just recorded 2 separate shots. We can actually edit them inside of UEFN, just like an editor like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere. So in order to do that, so I'm going to take out my take recorder so we have a little bit more room down here. I'm actually going to close out this sequencer. Now I'm going to come down here to my content drawer. Now you can do this anywhere you want, but I'm going to right click down here, come down here to cinematics, and I'm just going to add a level sequence, in which we could just name this one tutorial because that's what it is. Now if I double click on this, let me actually, I could dock this into my layout here. So I'm going to dock this in the layout. So this way we have our browser and our sequencer, in which I'm going to bring this one above so we can see it a little bit easier. But now we can actually click and drag these scenes into our new sequencer. So if I left click and drag this up into here, and then let's scroll this over. Actually, let's look through this camera like so. Now I'm going to scroll this over until we get to the part where it starts moving. So somewhere around there. So that's our first shot right there, right? So now we can add in our second shot. But before we do that, just come over and let's trim this clip down. And now let's add our second shot into here. So I'm just going to add the second shot, and let's trim this one down until we get to a point to where this one starts moving, which is about there. There we go. So now I can close my content drawer. Now we're looking inside of our sequencer. And if I come to the very beginning, like so, and right here, you can see that it actually has an exclamation point. And that's because by default, it's going to record at 24 frames per second. So let's make this 24 frames per second so everything matches. Now, if we click on play, you can see we have shot 1 recorded, and then it's going to jump into shot 2. So this is how you would go through and actually edit out your shots if you want to do everything in one long sequence, just like an editor would. So speaking of frame rates, I'm actually going to come back up here and look at our take recorder one last time, because this is something that you should know. So once this is opened up, you come over here, you can see we're at 24 frames per second by default. If you left click on this, you can actually change out your frame rate. Like I like doing things at 60 frames per second, especially working on game cinematics. But if you want to do something cinematic, 24 is the way to go. But you have a whole plethora of different frame rates that you can select in here. And once you select it, then you record, and it's going to record at that frame rate. So hopefully this helped out everybody out there working in UEFN. The take recorder is something that we've always had in Unreal Engine, but this is fairly new for UEFN. So if you want to do some cool cinematic shots using your Xbox controller there, this is the way to do it. So hopefully this helped you out. If it did, make sure you leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'll see you soon. Take care.